All right, boys, it's game day. Let's go. Let's go. Big game. Got a big game today. My package has arrived. Oh, sweet. Nice. Score! Great win, fellas. What game's next? G-men are having a great year. Let's go blue. Here we go. Prime time football. Texans, Dolphins. Let's do this. Yes! Review. Yes! Yes!
Heartland Flags. Every sport, every team, every flag.
Every team?
That's right.
Fine, fine. I'll get a Washington flag too.
Find your flag and so much more with fast, free shipping. Heartlandflags.com. Every sport, every team, every flag. Almost.
Heartland Flags and Gifts presents Legends and Listeners with Scott Dochterman and Chad Leistikow. Fly 'em high and fly 'em proud. Find your flag at heartlandflags.com. Breaking down the Big Ten from the Channel Seed Studios, this is Iowa Everywhere.
Hey, Hawkeye fans, Big Ten fans, and Iowans everywhere. Welcome into the Channel Seed Studios for episode 15 of Legends and Listeners here on the Iowa Everywhere Network. Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register with you as always, and happy to converse today with award-winning Hawkeyes beat writer Scott Dochterman of The Athletic. Scott, Big Ten championship game on our dockets here for the second time in 3 years, covering the Hawkeyes. We will get to that topic more specifically later with some conversation surrounding the game on Saturday between Michigan and Ohio State. But I kind of wanted to start today with the imagery that we saw at the conclusion of Iowa's 15-13 win against Illinois. Brian Ferentz, Kirk Ferentz, hugs, tears, water cooler baths. The OC getting to walk out of Kinnick a winner. How did that all resonate for you on Saturday?
Well, Chad, I was really, I guess I was happy for Brian that it kind of came to that conclusion. It's been a really choppy tenure for him. I thought early on, he had some things go well for him and on the offensive side, and then things kind of went south the last few years and he wasn't able to really galvanize it. So I thought, all things considered, the way this season has gone, to have that kind of memory for him, to have his kids out there with him, to, have the players dump him with Powerade and be able to, soak it up, have tears, probably beers too. I thought it was a good conclusion for him because he, the thing I think a lot of Iowa fans haven't realized or remembered is, he was a team captain for Iowa. He started a couple of years, nearly had his leg cut off for this program, came back and, left the New England Patriots right after their Super Bowl year from coaching Rob Gronkowski to coach the offensive line. And, spent 5 years doing that, and then ended up on the OC, and things didn't work out well, but, he played for the program. He bled for the program. So I think he's due that respect. So what did you think, Chad?
Yeah, I before the game, I tweeted out a quote from him from one of the podcasts I did with him. And I remember it being the best part of the 3-hour podcast, I thought, because he talked about, what it meant to him to be on Kinnick Stadium and with Hawkeye fans. And this was, of course, back in 2021. There was no necessarily threat that he was going to lose his job, or anything like that. But he also said, I may have ruined my career professionally by staying here so long. But he said, you know what? Every time I walk out on the field at Kinnick, it's worth it. That was the gist of the quote. And it was really cool to kind of revisit that. I thought of it while I was driving to the stadium on Saturday. And so, yeah, it was also just a reminder, that this guy has bled for the Hawkeyes for a long time. And I think it was a good moment for, like you said, a good moment for him. I'm glad for him. I've always liked Brian, and personally, for sure.
Yeah, me too.
He's funny.
Yeah.
He's funny. He's engaging. He's a great interview when we get to interview him. And I think he's gotten an unfair rap with the nepotism stuff. I don't think he's got an unfair rap with, the way the offense has performed. I feel like that's been justified, but I don't feel like he didn't earn his job in my opinion. I feel like he did earn his job, and we heard that from, example, Matt Rule this week in his press conference, singing his praises, and as a coach, and like he's going to be a good coach again, right? Mm-hmm. So it just didn't work out. I mean, it's time though, right?
Yeah. Yes to all that stuff, Chad. I think first, the nepotism stuff, whether it's apt for him being the offensive coordinator, that could be, everybody else can be their own judge and jury on that. But I think when you look at, how he got the job, the way he matriculated up the levels with Bill Belichick in New England and became a tight ends coach. I talked to Rob Gronkowski earlier this year, and he sang his praises. He said, he taught me how to block. I love that guy. He always boiled it down for me in the right way. And so to come to Iowa to be the offensive line coach, there was no reason for anybody to think that was nepotism. I mean, now granted, I think there were like 104 candidates, but why wouldn't Brian Ferentz be a candidate? I mean, again, he played, coached in the NFL, did it in a successful way. He led the tight ends through workouts at the combine one time, so he had a resume worthy. I mean, Iowa is not the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it is the University of Iowa. So it's not like you need to establish some sort of a threshold to be like an assistant coach at the University of Iowa. But then his tenure as offensive line coach, they gradually got better than what they were. Brandon Sheriff won the Outland in 2015. It all blends together.
Yeah, you're getting too much like Kirk here.
Yeah,
1980s and
1981 when we did this. 2015, they ran for 35 touchdowns when he was the run game coordinator. 2016, they won the Joe Moore Award with a really choppy unit, but by the end of the year, the way it blocked was fantastic. And that was the first and only time they've ever had 2,000-yard rushers in the same season. He was the run game coordinator for that. So it was absolutely the right trajectory. But I agree with you that all criticism is warranted when you start to look at the performance of the offense the last few years. Is it just Brian, or is it Brian and Kirk? I think both are fair game for that. And but that doesn't mean that you can't feel good for somebody based on their performance. And, it was an unfortunate timing, but it's still probably the right move to have Brian take off. And it's probably the best move for him professionally, because he cannot grow here. He is only going to be maligned. Even if next year Cade McNamara comes back and they're really good on offense, then it'll be because of Cade McNamara, not because of Brian Ferentz.
Definitely want to remind you guys that Legends and Listeners is brought to you by Heartland Flags and Gifts, which offers free shipping anywhere in the U.S., always has fresh products, every team, nearly every team, every sport, and every flag. I mean, it's pretty amazing. It has to be nearly every team, because anytime I search a team, they've got it. Visit our good friends online at heartlandflags.com or in store at 3719 Southwest 9th Street in Des Moines. Obviously, it's Christmas shopping season time. Black Friday is here. We'll get to Nebraska in a second, but pigtailing off the Brian thing. Here were like 4 3-word headlines I got, and I thought I'd just read them here because they offer a wide range of emotions. I'll let you pick out maybe one to jump on here. Happy for Brian. Beth was wrong. Bring back Brian, and thank you, Brian. So I feel like this game, Scott, and I'll let you. I want your take on this, obviously, too. Has stirred up some of that emotional, oh, man, did we do the wrong thing by getting rid of Brian? And why'd they fire him? I'm hearing a lot of this now. It's fine. I understand it, because there are emotions. Every week's a new emotion, And but I also think that, okay, I'll say what I'm going to say. Definitely don't have to agree with it. But I think if this move hadn't been made 3 weeks ago, there would be a lot more angst about this. There'd be a lot more pressure about this because he's not getting to 25, obviously.
Yeah.
And it is, as someone in the 3-word headlines said, it's now dry for 350, by the way. So it's not 325 anymore. So I feel like it was even more the right move in a way because you detach the emotion from this moment, right? At least for me, it's like now it's like if they hadn't done anything, it's almost to the point where, well, you have to bring him back, right? So I don't know. I feel like in a way it was even more so the right timing to do it as I look back on it. But any of that you want to jump on?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't going to be pretty no matter how it happened or transposed. And I think, in the interim or since this happened, they're 3-0. Nobody else in the West is close to that. So they've won these games but they also won 10-7, 22-0, and 15-13. So it wasn't like an offensive explosion. Now, I think they've played better on offense, and that's been proven especially with Deacon Hill. They go from completing 36% to 65% in over, his tenure. I think there again, how much of that is due to Brian working with him or John Budmeyer or just him getting more comfortable. I think everybody's got owns a slice of that pie, but I think thank you, Brian, is fine. I think that's probably what I would do it. And I would say Beth got it wrong. No. And as we know, that was more Barbara Wilson than Beth Getz, at least at that timing of it. I think overall it's good. It's healthy. This program can move in the right direction. I'm 1,000% agreement with you that if they would have kept winning, even the same scores, even the same exact outcomes, that the angst would still be high. Well, but we're still going to get beat by Ohio State or Michigan or whatever. And, are we really that good? And we're going to bring back Brian. That really sucks. Because I even wondered in the beginning of the year if I would have tweeted some sort of poll that said, would you rather be 7-5 and Brian gone or 10-2 and win the West, but he comes back? I think more people, at least on Twitter, would have voted for 7-5 and gone. And that's kind of the nature of the beast. So I think everything turned out perfectly at this point.
I'm glad you said that. Because that's how I'm feeling too. Like, I know it's not like great radio or whatever, to be agreeing all the time, but yeah. But also, I guess the reason I say that is because, I mean, you've noticed, haven't you, like that Kirk is like loose now. Mm-hmm. Everything is funny again. Like people are joking around. I feel like it just was an initial shock to the system or whatever. And that tells me that they've come to grips with it. They've accepted it. And now they're having fun with it. I mean, heck, post-game took forever the other night because he was relishing every moment with his, grandchildren and son and whoever else in the locker room. And I don't know. It just feels like the air has been cleared here. And the play's been better. I just feel like it all actually is almost perfect because he gets to walk out. He knows this is his last game in Kinnick. He walks out of their winner. And like you said, they only scored 13 offensive points. It's not like, I mean, it was punt, and then touchdown on 54-yard drive. So, and 10 of it was penalties. Not taking away from it, but, it wasn't like it was, greatest show on turf again. So,
I wonder how much of that was, we're both the parents of boys. And if we were working with them and somebody said, they fired your son, you'd take immediate, you'd be bristle at that. But, I'm sure whether it was his wife saying, no, you can go ahead and stay there. Cause I'm sure there's a lot of focus there. Cause I mean, he's her son too, and if she's like, screw them, let's leave or whatever, then you're kind of caught in the middle too. But, I'm sure Brian did a nice job of telling his dad, look, don't I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And we'll just move on. And, maybe they're angry at the outset, but I think, having that conversation, probably, just knowing how life works, if the wife is okay with it, okay, well, you can come back, keep working. Brian will be fine. We'll move on. But, don't expect him to write another $100K per year to the athletics department. That one might go away, but overall, and then the 88-minute thing, I hope never happens again, but after the game.
Yeah, right. You had it down to 88. Huh?
88 minutes, yes.
That was definitely I feel like the longest I've ever waited for Ferentz after a game.
Yeah, it was.
Is that accurate for you? You've been covering him longer. Okay.
The only one I'm even aware of in the Big Ten that lasted that long was one time when Indiana clinched the Big Ten basketball championship, but with Tom Crean, but they lost the game, and they waited like 3 hours, before they came out. It was like 1 a.m. before they came out to media, and then they went out and cut out the nets like by themselves. And I mean, this shows you how quirky Tom Crean was. But I remember, the Indiana media was just incensed, because for obvious reasons. And, Kirk didn't make it easy on us by any stretch. But I mean, I get it, but I'm like, all right, that's fine. Don't do it again.
Well, I don't really have any more thoughts on this other than I feel like it's freeing. Now Brian gets to go to Lincoln, Nebraska one more time. He gets to go to the Big Ten championship game now. And of course, we'll see what bowl game or whatever, but he's got a chance to kind of finish his career at Iowa, in whatever way he can make it happen. And so I don't know. I think there's a little bit of peace at knowing what's going to happen. And I feel like Iowa fans have just enjoyed this so much more too. I almost feel like it was a gift for the fans. It's like, even if you I don't know. It was if you're still mad at it and not enjoying these wins or whatever, like, I don't know. I just don't see that. I feel like everyone's just enjoying this right now, which is cool to see from where we sit, from, my parents sit. I mean, just everyone who's a Hawkeye fan, I feel like is just happier now.
No question. That's kind of the gist that I got to on, that, yes, there are the people, there was somebody who said, and I got kind of mad on Twitter, because they were like, this is like watching paint dry or something like that. I'm like, hey, I'm not the complaint department.
I saw that. That was good.
It's like, I get tired of this stuff. Why, some days I don't mind being the community bartender, but other days it's like, let's shut it down, But I think that this whole situation was like a giant blister. And by popping the blister, which was, okay, Brian, it's over after this, that it relieved all the tension. It relieved the anxiety. It relieved the anger and the angst, and allowed everybody just to enjoy it for what it is, because there's no use in getting angry and worrying that more wins means more Brian. It means that they can just go out and play football. And I think there's been more of an appreciation for the season, because yes, it can be hideously ugly, no question. But it's like, I get this from the fans, it's our team, and they're winning games, and the way that they're winning, and the adversity that they're facing, and the toughness that they're showing, you got to admire that. And I think a lot of fans have finally hit that plus button on that.
Well, and I think you raised one last point on this, and we'll move on, but I think you raised a good comment there, Scott, because now I feel like the way it is unfolding, that Brian is going to be able to leave with more fond memories from fans, like it's not like, I don't know, just the exit seems like it's a positive one. So all in all, I don't think it's necessarily, I think it's a good thing. All right. Circa Sports at last check had Nebraska favored in this game by 2 points. I've seen it 2.5 as well. Over under 26 at Circa Sports, which is the exclusive sports betting app of Iowa Everywhere. Circa Sports is sports betting the way it should be, with the highest limits, lowest holds, and best odds. Download the app today at the App Store or circasports.com. 26. 26. And as we'll get to if we get to our predictions, I've got it going under. So it's time for on that note, it's time for our main topic today, Scott, which is we're going to phrase it as the importance of beating Nebraska. Like, what is the importance? Is there an importance? Iowa certainly made its stance clear on Tuesday. There are many layers of this, but like I said, the first of which was kind of put to rest on Tuesday. Hawkeyes are going all out for the win on Friday. They're not going to rest anybody. At least, maybe they rest their center potentially. But I was impressed with everything they had to say, and I feel like they're going to bring their best on Friday.
My vibe from them is that the lack of pressure has been. It doesn't mean that there's a lack of focus. That just because that there's no anxiety attached to this game, in fact, it's probably, it's relieved all the stress. Now they can just go out and play football. Now they don't have to worry about what comes next. They can just go out and have fun, compete. And then it boils down to, well, why are you playing college football to begin with? And that is to play football. And then you have this rivalry game against, it is a rival, no question. And you're playing it on Black Friday before a national audience. And you have a chance to go out with 10 wins, which, has only happened 10 other times in Iowa history. And what, 6 of them were in the regular season. So that's really, that's a hell of an accomplishment for a program like Iowa in a year like this. Now, then there's anybody can win 10 games in the Big Ten West. Well, no, they can't. That's why Iowa's doing it.
Right.
You look at everybody else and nobody else is doing it. And I get it. It's not a juggernaut division, but Iowa is winning games. That's all I could do is win. And that's what they're doing. And so I think going to Nebraska, they've got the right mindset, and then they got a trophy there that they lost last year. And they're 17-1 in their last 18 November games. And that one loss was to Nebraska last year after just about half the team got whacked.
Yeah.
So,
Laporta, Beatrice, DeGene.
Yeah.
It would have been like if Iowa had lost DeGene, compare him to Laporta.
Mm-hmm.
Your best player. And Laporta was, Campbell maybe too. But Laporta was like the only chance.
Yeah.
They had to move the ball through the air. And then you lose. So, like, let's say it was last week and DeGene went down. And then you lost your net, like Higgins and, I don't know, I guess Deacon Hill in this case. In the first quarter, against Illinois. I don't think you're going to win that game probably, right? So, anyway, you brought up a lot there about this game. I guess I want to go into some different aspects of the Nebraska game. Let's talk about the fact that Nebraska's 5-6 again. Seems like this happens a lot, doesn't it? 2019, it did for sure. That's the one that sticks out to me the most.
2015.
2015, of course, that was under Mike Riley. Yeah, so they've done this with lots of coaches. And needs to beat Iowa in Lincoln in both those cases, and Iowa went over and won the game 28-20 and 27-24. It doesn't mean they were pretty games, but Iowa got the job done. How much do you think from Nebraska's side? They've lost 3 close games in a row, so they were 5-3. Now they're 5-4, 5-5, 5-6 after losing to Michigan State.
Yeah, Maryland
by 3. They kind of choked that one away, and then in overtime at Wisconsin played pretty decent game. But what do you think from Nebraska's point of view? Do you think they have a lot of pressure on them, maybe, or do you think they come out with guns a-blazing and it's one of those storms that Iowa can't, has to be ready for,
I guess I would look at it a couple of different ways. I think with Nebraska, you look at it as they've got more pressure applied to them on this game because they have to win it. but it's also ramped up their intensity too. The other losses all blew for them. That sucked, but they do regard Iowa as a rival. The whole banter that we had for about a decade of, is this a rivalry, or there's Iowa beneath Nebraska. Now, all that's kind of out the window now. It is, and it will be, and it will be for through the time when we're taking a dirt nap. So, I think so. From Nebraska's perspective, though, they've got a lot to play for as a program. They've struggled for a lot of years. They haven't been to a bowl game since 2016. They're the only Power 5 program to go that long, and for that glorious history and past that they have, that's pretty humiliating. So for them to go out and play well, beat Iowa at home in front of the fans and get to a bowl game, beat Iowa for the second straight year, that really matters. And for Matt Rule, it can show a lot of progress. Like, hey, we're turning the corner. We've had some tough losses, but we still, we got it together at the end and won a game against the Big Ten West champion. And now we're proving that we can compete with all of these teams. So for Iowa, it's the exact opposite. It's going to play loose. We're going to go out and play well, win. They're going to get stuck at home again. Ha ha ha. And I think, the Schadenfreude might come out after the game, but overall, it does make for a really contrast in styles and very interesting game, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I wrote about the 10 wins today. So the other 6 are the 85. Now, of course, they didn't used to play as robust of a schedule. We have to give that asterisk. But 1985, they won 10 regular season games. 1991, they won 10 regular season games. They did not win the bowl game either year that year.
Right.
Now they got to 10, I believe it was 87 with the postseason win against Wyoming. Yep. And then 7 times under Ferentz. So see if I got it right. 02, obviously they got to the 10 in the regular season. Obviously I got to 11 in the regular season. 03 and 04, they needed the bowl game to get to 10. Now, 04 was a shortened schedule. So they went 9-2 in the regular season. 09, you get to
they were 10-2.
10-2 and then won the bowl.
Then won the bowl.
Yep. And then 15, 19, and 21. So 19, they needed the Holiday Bowl. 15 and 21, they got there. 21's kind of the comp, I suppose, to this year.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And they went to Lincoln and won that game too. Took a weird game to do it, but they did it. So anyway, those are the 10-win seasons. So as Nico Ragaini said today, it's like these are the ones that are going to get you remembered. And Scott, they could win 11 games. Even if they win this week and just lose next week, whatever the score is, go win your bowl game. 11-3 team. I mean, with what this team faced, it's like one of those where Kirk Ferentz is going to be talking about this, when he's the Iowa coach in 2032 and bringing back the 2023 team as 2023 team is one of his stories.
As he should. I mean, this team is a lesson in perseverance and toughness and fortitude. And it's not really unlike 2004. The difference is the offensive challenges made this just so it really soured everybody on the team, because back then they had no running backs, but they had an exciting quarterback who threw 14 interceptions that year, by the way, but he also threw 20 touchdowns and Drew Tate. But, in 04, but their defenses were comparable, and the way that they were winning and what happened before the season. I mean, getting just annihilated out in the desert. It was like 44-7 by Arizona State, and they scored like on a punt return in the end of the game.
Walner Bellis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then they got beat by Michigan fairly decisively, although they played better. And then they went on a run. And it's like, that's kind of, you look at this year and it's similar to the same thing. The difference is there was no Big Ten championship game that there is this year. They clinched a share of it at the end, which, they basically, I look at last week as one of those great moments, because I went through like every year that Iowa had won a title, division or conference title, from the Evie to the Hayden to the Kirk eras. And the only time that they clinched it with a touchdown, was 56 at home, because the other ones were like 85. They crushed Minnesota, and, in 81, they had a, big
Michigan
blowout.
State, yeah.
Right. Even in 90, they lost it.
Yeah,
they
right.
lost the Dome.
The Dome, yeah.
In 02, they won in the Dome. 04, they beat Wisconsin, but it was 30-7. So, so you go all the way back, and 56 was the only other one where you had like a pivotal touchdown. And that was a third quarter touchdown in a 6-0 game. This one was a fourth quarter touchdown at the end of the game to win it. And I think that just shows you historically how important it was. Now, I don't think it resonates quite yet, what it would if it happens next week. But, but I think overall, this is a special season, and there's special young men that are competing. And, I don't want to go too far here, but and special coaches coaching, because I think that in order to 3 weeks ago, Chad, we had a 4-way tie atop the top of the West. One team won 3, and it was the team that was most depleted, that had the most issues, and yet, and had an offensive coordinator fired, who was the son of the head coach. He had the best player in the division, maybe even in the whole Big Ten. He break his leg practicing offense. And then they're the ones that win it, So that's, you've got to tip your cap to the coaches as well.
Yeah, like you said, we remember the 2004 season with fondness, and they beat Iowa State that year by 7, same as they did this year. They got blown out by a team with State in their last name on the road in just a buzzsaw game, like you mentioned. That was Arizona State last year, Penn State this year, and they won 3 games that season by exactly 2 points, Scott. 6-4. Everyone remembers that, of course.
Yeah.
And then 23-21 over Purdue and 29-27 over Minnesota. And then, of course, the bowl game ends up with the Tate to Holloway situation. So magical year. I like that comparison too. So we'll see how it plays out. On the flip side, if you lose this game, and 9-5 is in play, and that would be an unfortunate finish for this team. So in other words, I guess what I'm saying, and I think you're saying, is like, this game does mean a lot. It means a lot for this program.
Yeah. To me, I think it carries, it just speaks to what the program's tenets and core principles are, is to go out and play hard every single time you're out there, because nothing's promised, nothing's given, and go out and compete, your hardest. And again, there's big picture ramifications too, because, Nebraska and Iowa compete for recruits. I would say a good third to a half of the recruits, especially in Iowa or kind of in between the rivers and all throughout the Midwest, they compete a lot. In Algona, as we know, there's 2 high caliber players, including the quarterback, Alex Bansky, who both schools want. And, I would hope that they're not that shallow that they say, well, I'm flipping coin, whoever wins this game, that's where I'm going to go. But I do think that, it makes you feel one way or the other, and it allows you to promote yourself in a way that can help you and possibly give you an edge. And so that's there again, you want to make sure to have that. And plus, do you really want to lose to Nebraska 2 years in a row?
Exactly. I know the fans don't, and I know the players don't either. I mean, I was just really impressed with, and I know it's just words, but when Kirk Ferentz said, I had no doubt that they were going to come in and be all business, that's how this team is. He said today, Tuesday, that, talked about how the defense is really taken. Yeah, it was playing good earlier in the year, but now it's really playing good. And if he says that in a press conference, they're really playing good, which they are. But I mean, they really are playing good football. That was a good Illinois offense the other day. I mean, and they, 4 and out, the game on the line, they made a 4 and out, and they got it done. So, this team is playing at a high level, and that leads me into the last part of this conversation was how does Iowa win this game, Scott? I would like to know your thoughts as well. I know what I've written and what I filed for the article, the paper on Friday. I had to file that one early, but what are your thoughts? And then I'll get into mine. How do you win the game if you're the Hawks?
I think you just play the same way you've played all year long. They have an outstanding defense too. It's going to create a lot of problems for your offense. Your defense is really good. You're going to have to slow down the running game. I think that's probably one of the challenges. I think not unlike facing Rutgers in some ways, that you're going to have to be cognizant of the running quarterback. You're going to have to be cognizant of the running game. But I think they're capable of that. It's really going to come down to the minute details. And that is, penalties, turnovers, field position. And you're looking at it going, okay, Tory Taylor, I'll take my chances with Tory Taylor every single day and, twice on Sunday. And then you look at penalties. Nebraska's cut down on those quite a bit from the Frost era. They were a little frosty with the penalties back in the day. But Iowa's better. Iowa's still pretty good. But then turnovers. And Iowa's not having a good year. I mean, they're -3. That's un-Iowa-like. But Nebraska's -15. And they've, their 28 turnovers, I think, are second worst in the nation. So if you're going to beat Iowa and you play the same style of football, game in and game out, punt ball, we'll stop you. Maybe you get a first down, then you punt, we punt, blah, 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 blah. Eventually something breaks. And as long as Deacon Hill doesn't make a big mistake, then you'd think it's going to come down to Nebraska, which then ultimately turns into points. And that's the way, to me, it's kind of like just play your game. I think Iowa's better at it. And then you get in the pressure situations. Nebraska is going to be feeling the pressure and the tension. They're at home. They need to win to get to a bowl game. Iowa's going to play loose. Like, we got this. We've been here. Really, we should be 5-0 in one-score games. But,
yeah, right.
4-1 with an asterisk. But so I don't know. How about you? What do you think is going to happen?
No, I mean, it's like you read my preview. I mean, it's the area I can focus on here. I think that you didn't. I agree with all that stuff. I think Iowa's going to be. They're going to go into this game and say, "Hey, they're going to turn it over. We just need to wait for that turnover." And Iowa was so close against Illinois to about 5 or 6 interceptions. Castro dropped one. Deshaun Lee had an opportunity. Jamari Harris, barely had a foot out of bounds. I mean, he was cleared out of bounds, but still, they were close on those. And I feel like that's the message this week. Just you're going to get your chance. This Iowa defense, we know they are due for turnovers, and they've been so close. I mean, Quinn Schulte dropped one a few weeks ago against was that Minnesota, right? Was it Minnesota? He dropped one? Oh, it was Rutgers. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think he had another one, but
that's right. Okay. Yeah. Man, I feel like it was Minnesota. But anyway,
maybe you're right. You might be right.
The deflected one down, and then they got a field goal. Anyway, they're due, and we know that Phil Parker's defense typically is good at that area. The thing that concerns me on defense, which I'm not usually concerned about defense too much, is Iowa's D-line does not get pressure on its own, really. So you're right. They got to stop the run. But, Purdy is making his second career start. Iowa defenses usually have – it's almost perfect, honestly, because you've got film on him now. You got a full game film on him, and Phil can go to work on it. Yeah. And they've nailed down on these running quarterbacks, I feel like. I mean, Gavin Wimsatt didn't even try to run. I assume Purdy's going to try to run and scramble as much as he can, but Iowa's got Sebastian Castro at the cash. They've got two great linebackers. They got 2 safeties that they can hit, man. I mean, Xavier Wampa, he's been kind of quiet this year, but he's made some pretty big hits. That Northwestern game, he made a few wallops, and Schulte, of course, had one real big hit the other day.
Yeah.
They got a flag. But anyway, that's kind of what I think. I think you punish the quarterback. I think they'll try to knock him out if they can. Count on turnovers and be content to punt. Win the game.
Yeah, win it your way. I mean, and if there's one thing that Iowa can take a little bit of advantage of, is that Nebraska does give up easier passes. I mean, they give up almost 61% completion percentage. And based on the way Iowa's been able to complete passes with Deacon Hill, I mean, to go from 36% to 65% in a very short period of time, then maybe that allows Iowa to move the ball a little bit more. And again, it's knowing the complementary style of football that Iowa has to employ right now. It's not a sin to punt. You just want to make sure that if you get the ball at the 34, that you move it to midfield and then punt. And then you push them into the 7-yard line. And then you get a safety, or then you force them to punt again. And then you're trading space. And then you're winning that war of attrition. And I think Iowa's more than capable of winning it. It really is going to have to come down. A couple of things I think are a little bit weird is Iowa can give up some yards rushing at times because they do play basically 7 in the box, not 8. And at times teams can take a little bit of advantage of that. But they're going to have to be patient too. They're going to have to make sure that, okay, we'll just keep taking it. We'll just keep taking it. And so I think Iowa's going to have to be careful there. They're probably going to sacrifice a little bit of pass disruption in order to stop theirs or slow the run. So that's more 2-gap. And then, I think the other thing is, you want Deacon Hill to be aggressive, but be also risk averse. And that is, if the opportunity's there, take it, but otherwise don't. Throw it away. Even take the sack if you have to, but don't lose the ball, because that's really, to me, the one way. We saw it last year against Nebraska, big plays and loose ball. And I think that's can be the recipe for disaster on Friday if they do it that way.
I picked Iowa to win 13-9. I know they're a slight underdog. What do you got?
Iowa 16-13. So I think they might actually go over.
Okay. That's funny that 16-13 is actually an over. That's good.
Yeah.
Good analysis there, Scott. Well, by about 2:30 p.m. Friday, the Hawkeyes regular season will be done. As you said earlier in the year, Scott, on this podcast, I believe, every game is a gift from God. So we're going to miss it. And with the end of the regular season, you may want to pour one out. And if you do, consider a pour from Steeple Ridge Bourbon. From farm to bottle, Steeple Ridge Bourbon offers a high quality, delicious drinking bourbon. If you don't find Steeple Ridge at your favorite retailer, ask for it by name. It is distilled, aged, and bottled in Iowa by Lonely Oak Distillery. Scott, I know I'm looking forward to a Saturday of sipping on my coffee and settling in for Ohio State, Michigan on Saturday. And this is an important game for us too, covering the Hawks, because the winner faces Iowa. So I cannot tell you how excited I am for this game. Who would you say the two teams in the NFL, for example, that hate each other most? Who are those two teams, would you say? You're the NFL guy here.
It doesn't compare to college football.
That's what I mean. This is like the two teams that probably hate each other the most. And every single storyline has ramped this up so much more. I've listened to a couple podcasts, and the 2006 game, 1 versus 2, Bo Schembechler dies on game week. Never be topped, right? And now it's like, I'm not so sure. This one is right there. There is so much animosity between the coaches, the teams, the fans. And Scott, this is the last time that it's like the NFC Championship game, for example. This gets you into the Super Bowl. This gets you into the playoff. And it's the two teams that hate each other the most. It's like, it'd be like Bears Packers if the Bears and Packers were like 14-2 every year, to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know. I'm so amped up for this game and so excited for it. I just think every single storyline just makes this one of the most intriguing Ohio State-Michigan games ever.
And this is why, I mean, it to me, it's the best rivalry in collegiate sports. It's the most intense rivalry in collegiate sports. It's something that's, I mean, Michigan got its nickname Wolverines because of a near war between Michigan territory and Ohio over Toledo, and that's, it's like they called the Ohio people called the Michigan people Wolverines. And they took it, and, George Pickett used it during a raid on the Battle of Gettysburg by the Michigan cavalry, and now they're, fighting each other, years and generations later here in the football field. And I just, I think I'm glad, first of all, that Michigan's good again. So this rivalry is good again, because it got kind of old and stale when Ohio State was dominating it year in and year out. I would say the 16 game was unique in its own way. The 16 game was really impactful, but this one might top them both. I agree with you, because the hate and vitriol and I think there was a healthy respect between Lloyd Carr and Jim Tressel and for the teams. I don't know and they may respect the ability of the other team, but they don't necessarily respect the teams. And then, of course, you throw on, Connor Stallions, and, and he wrecked Iowa, no question. And, and then you look at all of that. So I think this is the ultimate, because as you said, next year there's a divisionless league. They could play conceivably week after week,
and then again in the playoff, they might play 3 times next year.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, if they end up being like the 4 and 5 or something in the bracket, I mean,
right.
Could easily play in a quarterfinal.
Exactly. That's nuts. So this is the last time it's singular, although they could, I suppose, something happens, they could play in the playoff, but
yeah,
it's winner take all. And, of course they're looking at Iowa as like the AFC champion, like the, when the Chargers, the Bills or I remember the Chargers played the Cowboys 49ers winner, and it was like, so.
Well, the game is fascinating. I kind of wish Harbaugh was there. From an Iowa perspective, I'm pretty much on the side of like, if you're Iowa, you want Ohio State to win, just because I'm not saying you can beat either team, but Ohio State, this is like their season. This is a huge, I know it's Michigan too, but Michigan's going to have Harbaugh back for the Big Ten championship game. It's going to have, it's going to be a buzzsaw type of thing, I feel like, if Michigan makes it to the title game. Ohio State, maybe you catch them letting down just a little bit after they have this triumphant moment in Ann Arbor, finally get them back. Ryan Day, pumping his chest or whatever for a while. And plus, I just think they're easier to stop other than Marvin Harris. If you had number 3 out there, you'd have a better shot. But I'm not saying they're easy to stop. But, like, McCord he could throw the game to you potentially. So, anyway, that's kind of what I look at. Anything you're looking at in this game in terms of, who wins?
It's going to come down to line of scrimmage and quarterback play, essentially. Not that I'm revealing anything there to, out there, but both teams are really good. And I think Ohio State is underrated defensively. Jim Knowles has done a tremendous job as their defensive coordinator. They've got good players at all 3 levels who are impactful. I think, I look at, what they can do defensive line, and against Michigan's offensive line, they've got some potential to really hammer away. And of course, Marvin Harrison can change the world when he's out there. The one question mark I have for Ohio State is, how does its offensive line handle Michigan? Can they run the ball with effectiveness? Because they're going to need to. And can they protect Kyle McCord? Marvin Harrison's all world. He's the best I've ever seen in the Big Ten. And they've had some great wide receivers, but he's better than all of them. But that's not going to matter if you're running for your life. So I think the key for me is, if Ohio State can run the ball with effectiveness and displace the line of scrimmage and prevent a lot of heavy traffic on Kyle McCord, I think Ohio State wins. But if they can't, no, it's going to be Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan's got really good defensive line, good defensive tackles. Ohio State has a freshman center. And, you know, you have to give the edge at quarterback, I would think, to McCarthy, and Ohio State has questions at tackle. So but they have the best player. Ohio State has the best player, and he can completely change a defensive game because you're right. Both defenses are really good. I think Ohio State's defense is probably better. If you look at Ohio State's scores recently, they are not allowing anything. And, you know, I thought they were better defensively against Penn State than Michigan was. We saw Michigan give a 25 to Maryland the other day. I'm 24. I'm sorry. 25. 25 is on an Iowa mind. 25 points.
Yeah.
Has Iowa gotten to 25 in a Big Ten game this year? They haven't, have they, by the way?
Yeah. Michigan State.
Oh, yeah. That's right. 26. That's right. Thank you, Cooper.
Yeah, Cooper.
Anyway, but I picked Ohio State to win. I got them winning 21-20. I think this is their year, and I think there might be one or two penalty calls that go Ohio State's way, just because Big Ten doesn't want Michigan to win it. But the best chance for the Big Ten to get 2 in the playoff, that would be Michigan winning, I think, because Michigan's schedule is not good enough to get in with a loss. I got Ohio State. What do you got?
Yeah. I'm going to go with Michigan, 34-30.
But high scoring.
Yeah, it sometimes gets that way. So, but you're right, because Michigan's strength of schedule is non-existent. They were the only team not to play another Power 5 in the non-con. You know, they're supposed to play UCLA, and they backed out. You know, so poo on them. I mean, they got to play them, I think, next year. But and there's going to be, I won't say, the committee will probably, even though Ward Manuel's on it, the committee is not going to go, oh yeah, well, Michigan's this, I think Ohio State would get more of a benefit of the doubt. But there's going to have to be some losses coming up. I mean, somebody's going to have to lose that, because if Ohio State, let's say they lose, they're probably going to fall to like 8. Then they're going to have to be like Alabama's going to have to lose to Georgia.
Yep. Florida State will have to lose.
Florida State,
maybe even Texas. Yeah, maybe it'd be a good debate. Texas versus Ohio State,
right? And that might come down to the championship game. How do they look against Oklahoma State or whatever?
Yeah.
You'd probably hope for Washington to win.
Right.
Beat Oregon twice, because then then you start to compare strengths of schedule, and Washington might be able to squeak in, So yeah, there's all kinds of fun little debates, and that's potentially there. So, but then, the winner also has to beat Iowa, and I'm by no means going to try to predict any kind of victory for the Hawkeyes. The only thing that I'll say is that they will be heard, that they will punch them in the face. Now they may get punched back and knocked to the ground, but they will make their presence known, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I like, I think with Iowa's defense, that's the one thing against either team, the Iowa's defense is going to come to play and give them the best shot. The offense just has to be functional in some way to stay in it. And we've seen them be functional in the last couple of weeks. I feel like, 402 yards against Rutgers, 281, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it was kind of I thought it was a positive 281 in that Illinois game. They did what they needed to do to win the game. So kind of excited to see it. Kind of excited to see it in a few weeks, but obviously we got a game on Friday first. So I'll see you there, Scott. Good episode today. Sorry we went long, Aiden. Really apologize, but it's a big game.
Yeah. Well, happy Thanksgiving, Chad, to you and your family, and Aiden to yours, and everybody listening. We're thrilled that you hopped on with us, and can't wait to talk to you next week.
Absolutely. For Scott Dochterman, this is Chad Leistikow. Thanks for tuning in to Legends and Listeners from the Channel Seed Studios, and we will talk to you next week at our normal time, 11 a.m. Thursday, right here on the Iowa